Hi everybody, thanks for joining me once again. This is Peter, you're watching Thailand Bound and it is story time. Right, you know at the beginning of every upload I always say I've got two great stories for you. I've got three great stories for you. I do it every week, it's just habit now. These three today, they really are good, really good. And the first one in particular I like a lot. And I think based on what this guy's explaining, you'll see why, okay? So I'm not going to waste any more time as usual. Let's get straight into story number one.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Here's my story. It's not so much of a story as a compilation of what I've learned over the last 12 years of living and visiting in Thailand and the Philippines. Being an old dog, I can say the more you know you don't know. Till now, your stories have been mostly about guys visiting Thailand. Their adventures, car crash stories, and love lives have been your mainstays. And why not? However, by you now returning to live in Thailand, I see that you have started to branch out and widen your horizons by giving live updates. I particularly like the way you have met up with and interviewed other vloggers, as I am also subscribed to Trevor of Bangkok Pattaya, Edward Sweeney in Southeast Asia, and Paul Enrique in the Philippines. I will just add here that I include for your eyes only a PowerPoint presentation that I sent to my friends here in Israel a few years ago. I did it merely for fun. This should highlight for you why I have my opinions after 5 visits to the Philippines and 8 times to Thailand. So as I say, up to you, a very popular and personally annoying expression used by Filipino and Thai women. Since a large part of its economy is based on tourism, the infrastructure of roads, buildings and public facilities provide a comfortable and luxurious travel destination. The jungles, mountains and beaches attract millions of tourists, all of whom boost the country's income. The Buddhist culture ensures a laid-back ambience that appeals to overstressed and excitable Westerners whose overseas incomes can turn them into short-term millionaires. In my case, as an Israeli, where Tel Aviv was voted the most expensive city in the world in 2021, my money has doubled or even trebled the value in Thailand. Also, whenever I travelled by myself in the cities or in the Thai provinces, I always felt safe. Despite the occasional feral dog in remote unlit villages at night where I carried a big stick, I never felt any threat of being mugged or pickpocketed. As an Israeli who has served in the military, I am ultra aware of security issues and personal safety. As such, I only book hotels that have an in-room safe big enough for my iPad. The Philippines, on the other hand, is a much poorer country. Yes, there are luxurious tourist destinations and great natural scenery, but from my perspective, Thailand is a much better opinion. My reasons are these. Firstly, I am a budget traveller because I live on a modest pension. As such, I stay in 3-star hotels or low-cost Airbnbs. I enjoy meeting local people who many times have invited me to stay in their poor homes as their non-paying guest. Naturally, I have reciprocated by inviting them out to meals in restaurants for all of the family, which otherwise they couldn't afford. The Philippine infrastructure, buildings in the major cities and public facilities across the board are very run down. They have many power failures, which they call brownouts. When was the last time you heard of a major power cut in Thailand? To highlight this, I will quote my Indian neighbour in Israel, whom, when told that I would be visiting Manila on my first trip to the Philippines 8 years ago, said, "Don't go there, it's worse than the worst city in India." He was right. However, I had already linked up with a nice lady in Manila via a dating site, so I discovered for myself what he meant in my first 3 days in Manila. Regarding personal security in a highly impoverished country, I can say this is about the Philippines. Desperate people do desperate things. On my first day in Manila, I was astonished to see head-to-toe armed and uniformed guards with shotguns standing outside even the smallest restaurants and shops. Later, in a smaller southern city, a large shopping mall had an army of security guards. They were decked out with full riot gear of belt pouches with handcuffs and bullet clips, knee pads, batons and shotguns. 4 outside guards were accompanied by 2 menacing muzzled Doberman dogs restrained by dog leads made of chain. Although Thailand has noticeable security personnel in malls and hotels, there is nothing like what I saw in the Philippines. Even more so, just consider the number of gold shops in Thailand. Most of them do not have security guards, preferring to let CCTV cameras and automatic door locks do the job for them. That could never be done in the Philippines. Another example of the differences between the two countries is regarding the ATMs. Yes, both countries have predatory ladies who see the average white Western single guy as a walking ATM machine, but here I'm talking about the real ATM machines. I had a Filipino girlfriend for 5 years. When withdrawing cash from a street ATM, I had her standing back to back with me. Incidentally, it also helped that in her younger years as a martial arts specialist, she had been the personal bodyguard of the Deputy President of the Philippines. However, there is one major annoyance for me in Thailand. To put it bluntly, most Thai ladies speak little English, and this is reinforced by foreigners repeating their mistakes. Take, for example, the use of the verb to have, which is used in two ways. I have, as ownership, or used as describing a past event, as in, yes, I have visited Chiang Mai in the past. A Thai lady may shout out, have massage here, to which many Farang guys may reply, have oil or Thai massage. Apart from aerobics in both countries, which is important for me, good English language communication is also important. This is where the Philippines has the upper hand. Their second language is England. Shop signs are in English. Hotel regulations are posted in good English. An example of this is in the PowerPoint presentation I sent you, whereby guests are requested to deposit their guns at the reception desk. I have even been to Sunday morning prayers in a church where the priest blessed me in front of everyone in English as being an honoured guest from the Holy Land. It elevated my ego to the role of one of the 12 disciples. So my dilemma was this: do I prefer a safer country like Thailand or better language communication as in the Philippines? My answer is this. In the past, I was looking for a permanent relationship, so the Philippines was out. But since ending my relationship with my Filipino girlfriend 3 years ago, I live day by day. Who knows when I'm going to die, or as we say, when I'm going to pop my clogs. I am a gym junkie. I don't drink alcohol, I don't smoke, but I do love female company. At the age of 76, I am just looking for ladies who like being with older Farangs, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is the fountain of youth for me. It's a tonic, much better than all the pills and medicines I take. I feel energized in Thailand. I don't need the judgmental remarks by Western women of my own age who have no experience of Thai culture. For their part, I absolutely understand Thai women who link up with Farangs. Most of these ladies were born in villages or towns where they lived a poor existence. Many have had husbands or boyfriends who ran off after giving them children. Remember, for most there is no insurance or alimony in Thailand. Many work in hard physical labor in rice paddies or other farming on less than $30 a month. The common denominator for all Thai women is that they put their parents and children first. They are willing to compromise their own existence so that they can feed, educate and take care of their families. The Western boyfriend is always delegated to third or fourth place in the queue. Any visiting Farang should know this. They must lower their expectations. No matter how much money they spend on their Thai girlfriends, they are not number one. Yes, no money, no honey, but you are not the bee master. Thai women are very shrewd on this. It's a matter of business. Some Thai ladies are genuinely looking for long-term relationships. As an opening gambit, they work either as freelancers, masseurs, go-go dancers or bar girls. The pay and the hours are better. Some link up with Farangs through dating sites. I don't blame them. If the situation was reversed with me in the West being third world country, would older and jealous Western women change their attitudes regarding Asian men visiting the red light districts of London or New York? Everything is relative. Maybe one day China will be the only rich superpower and the West will go down the tubes. Food for thought. So I call the Thai lady / Farang relationship a mutual benefit society, a win-win situation. It can turn out well as long as a Farang keeps his wits about him. But it can go pear-shaped if he is stupid, drunk, or if he loses his heart to a bar girl. Up close and personal, physical contact can very easily turn into emotional contact. We're all human. We all have emotional needs too. The land of smiles can quickly turn into the land of emotion on the flip of a coin. But remember, in many cases, it's a matter of business from her standpoint. That's all I have to say. I hope newbies can benefit from my experience. And Peter, I hope you can use this on your vlog. As I say, up to you. Maybe we'll meet on my next visit to Thailand. It is planned for April or May 2023 when I have a dual purpose for my visit. I'll meet up with my current girlfriend either in Pattaya or in her village in Isan. Secondly, I'm coming for more dental work. Last February, I had 3 fill-ins at the Pattaya International Dental Centre on soicowboy. It was very cheap and highly professional. Add to that the wonderful smiling customer care, great treatment and a reason to go back there. Next time, without root canal, I need 4 crowns, which in Israel would cost me a minimum of $4,500 as opposed to $1,700 in Thailand. So I finish on that note. So I think that was quite an informative video. I quite enjoyed that. And anybody who hasn't been here before or they've got any illusions about trying to change a bar girl's way of thinking, this should put them straight. Just to let you know, I do intend to make a video when I'm settled down here properly. I've got to go back to the UK at the end of February. My house is still going through. Hopefully that will go through, fingers and toes crossed. I do plan to make a video on health insurance here in Thailand, and I also plan to make another video on dentistry work, that sort of thing, because it is very, very good here, and a lot of guys have asked me about it, but I just haven't had the time to go out there and interview doctors and dentists and things like that, and I want to do it properly. I don't want to rush it just for the sake of a video, okay? So the other thing I want to mention on this story, we're talking about relative terms of earning potential for a girl in a bar or a freelancer who's charging 1,500 baht for a couple of hours. I do know guys who own bars, run bars, and I get to talk to bar girls without them looking at me as if I'm a customer or there's any potential to make money out of me. But I was talking to a girl a few weeks ago, and we were talking about when COVID was here, and you know, here in Bangkok, she's earning between 30 and 50,000 baht a month with all the ladies' drinks, the aerobics, you know, guys taking her out to the island for a week. It's real good money, you know. And I said to her, what did you do during COVID? Because there's no social welfare system in place here in Thailand. And she said, I was pulling potatoes out of the ground. And I was like, really? You know, and there's this stunning girl, you know, in a bikini, just about to go off and dance with all makeup and hair. And, you know, she looked $1 million. That's a corny thing to say, but she really, really did. She was beautiful. And I just can't imagine her in a field picking potatoes. And I actually said this to her. And I said, but you don't like to get brown skin. You're Thai, you like to keep your light color. And she said to me, she said, yeah, we wrap ourselves up and only our eyes are shown. You know, you've seen pictures, they wear the big hat and they're wrapped up and it looks so hot, but they get used to it. What's important is they don't want their skin to turn brown. So I said to her, well, look, you had a couple of years after finding out some more information about her. I said, well, look, you've had a couple of years working in the bar. You've got an iPhone, you've got this, you've got that. You're quite well to do compared to a girl that works in a factory. How could you, oh, by the way, very important, she has a child as well, young child, okay, husband run away, alcoholic or something like that. So I said to her, well, how was it for you? Because you're working in the bars, you've got easy money or easy-ish, and all of a sudden you're picking potatoes in the ground for 300 baht a day. Why would you do that? And she just put it on the table, real simple for me to understand. She said, look, you know, while I'm in the bars, the good times are here. I've got my looks, I can make a lot of money. She said, but when it all closed down, we don't have a welfare system. I've got a child to support. I support my other siblings, mothers, things like that. She said, 300 baht a day, it's nothing compared to what we're doing here. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm picking potatoes out the ground for sort of 8 to 10 hours. I get 300 baht. She said, but you know, after a few days, I can buy a sack of rice. I can buy a lot of fresh vegetables from the market that are very, very cheap. That even now, you go to the market at 6, 7 in the morning, you can get for pennies. And then, you know, they can buy some cheap cuts of pork and stuff like that. So, you know, I'm taking a long time to explain. basically why she worked for the 300 baht a day, because she could feed herself, she could feed her baby, and she could feed her siblings. Okay, so first choice maybe working in the bar, make a lot of money, but when when shove comes to push, the Thais are very resilient and they do what it takes, because nobody's, it's not like in the Western countries where our dads, the government, hand it all out on a silver plate. Okay, so you need to understand that to get your mind into their kind of mentality, as it were, because like the guy quite rightly said, you're not going to be number one on her list. Okay, you're important because you're providing money, but you're not number one. Okay, family comes first. Right. Okay, for all the guys who say I waffle on too much, let's get into the next story. Right, I have traveled to Thailand half a dozen times in the past 5 years with a view to someday relocating or living there for most of the year. I'm an Australian in my early 50s and I'm self-funded without needing any salaried work. My most recent trip in 2022 took me to an outward bound trip beginning in Phuket, then Bangkok and onwards to Europe, then returning to Bangkok and Phuket over a 4 months period. I have been corresponding with Thai ladies of various ages online, and the most recent experience was the closest to a girlfriend-like experience. Her name is Pim. I met her online and she was not the easiest to get in contact with at first. We eventually agreed on a time, although it was only due to my persistence. I even made it easier for her by saying I can meet her at her place as I am very mobile on my own motorbike. She told me to come at 4:30 p.m. but said her friend was coming to her room at 6 p.m. and so I had to leave by that time. At this point, there was no mention of what I was looking for nor anything on what her expectations were. I parked my motorbike and messaged her when I was near the apartment block and she came down and we greeted each other with beaming smiles. Then I followed her to her room whilst enjoying the pleasing view of Pim climbing the stairs wearing tight denim shorts in front of me. I found myself in Pim's room sitting on her bare mattress. Some small talk ensued, then I made a move and the aerobics followed. It was a pleasing experience and I told her I want to see her again and that I liked her. She reciprocated with the like and agreed we'd meet again. The following week, I reached out to meet her and she told me she would be free in 2 days' time. I called back and we met again on many occasions. I initially brought her to my hotel and spent some time at restaurants near where I was staying. She was happy to hang out with me and have a laugh. Pim's English is very basic and my Thai is even more basic, but we are still able to communicate with each other. The usual protocol of drinking, aerobics, then on her phone, watching silly pranks and animal bloopers, then sleep, became a pattern that I was able to get used to very quickly. We would get out of bed late each day around midday and she would want to go to her room. A really nice setup exists in her apartment block where a wonderful cook prepares breakfast, lunch and dinner at a nominal cost to the residents, including me. I was quickly absorbed and very much liked by the others that live in the same block as Pim. One of the ladies who has an Australian male friend admitted her Australian friend would not be comfortable sitting and mingling with the Thai people as I do. That is, eating Thai food, drinking and just doing what the Thai people do. I appreciated the feedback. I thought Pim appreciated and was impressed by this. She told me she would take me to her village in northern Thailand and meet her family. On a couple of occasions, she phoned her mother and introduced her to me. We spoke online and it was something that I did not expect. That is, to be introduced to her mother so soon. I had discussed a boyfriend situation. She told me once she remarries, she will not pursue others and no longer meet others, and that she would be with her husband only. She would also move back to her village to help the upbringing of her children. She did mention that she had land and her dream is to build a house on the land. She even went to the extent of finding the price and telling me how much it cost to build a 3 or 4 bedroom house in her village, minus fittings and fixtures. I am aware why she had planted the idea in my head and I just nodded and told her I see, carefully not to make any promises. I spent the rest of my stay eating with Pim and a bevy of newfound female friends. As already mentioned, I have no issue eating Thai food and it is easy for me to blend in with the Thai habit of somtam, sticky rice and beer with ice cubes. It amuses me how often Farangs make no attempt to appreciate or respect the wonderful Thai culture. Instead, the focus is all on objectifying Thai women, those Farangs are surely missing out on the icing of the cake. On one night, I escorted Pong and 3 of her female friends to a bar. Another friend of Pong's was already at the bar and was seated at the table with a Farang. Pong wanted to play some Thai music, so she selected a famous Thai tune and we danced for a while. In fact, all the Thai ladies at the bar simultaneously leaped out of their chairs to dance with those familiar provincial tunes. Although it is not my culture, I love the energy and the happiness and I participate with the ladies. Once the Thai music was over, the Farang seated at the bar decided to select a tune. He chose the well-known Gangman style tune, and to no surprise, there was zero interest from anyone in the bar. His choice of song was perhaps an attempt to try and entice the ladies or to look good. I'm not sure why he chose this particular song and what the thought process of this Farang was, but South Korea is a very different place to Thailand. I know Thailand is technically Asia, but in reality, Korea and Thailand are simply worlds apart. I think it is generally accepted that Thai women are forgiving of those foreigners who lack any appreciation of Thai culture and food simply because of the money that foreigners can offer. I have heard the expression walking ATMs, which is how some Thai women view foreign men, so it matters little if they present well, are handsome or not. Over the coming weeks, I spent most nights with her and her friends, partying, drinking and dancing, then retiring to my hotel with her at the end of the night for multiple aerobic sessions. I, in brackets naively, did think at some point there could be some romantic future with her. She had jokingly mentioned to her friends that we would marry next year and she would go to Australia with me one day, and she spoke of waiting to have my baby, in brackets she already had children of her own, staying with her mum and her Thai husband had gone. She sends money to her mother to fund her children, and it soon became clear to me that she is a freelancer and goes online to meet customers or goes out with her friends to meet other Farangs. Also, she was formerly a bar girl from some time before freelancing, as she sent me photos of her back in her bars she used to work in brackets I don't judge. I also handed her gifts over time we spent, including cash, as I thought this appropriate and I didn't want to be a cheap Charlie. I should also add she is 20 years my junior and drop dead gorgeous. Based on scrutinising her social media accounts as well as her online activity, it is clear she has many male friends. She actively pursues many others, which I am able to easily determine. I am a cynic and under no illusions here. Armed with this background, my eyes opened even wider. After the first week, I discovered a friend of Pim's from overseas had arrived and he wanted to meet Pim. Problem was that she was occupied with me. I gathered there was some decision making to be made on Pim's part, but she decided to honour the time we were spending together and postpone meeting him. On that same day, her friend saw me and realised what had happened and blurted out to me, "Aren't you happy?" To which I replied, "Of course, I'm a happy person." I knew what she was suggesting, but I didn't take the bait. I had a quiet chuckle to myself as I had once read something very profane. When you have a Thai bar girl as a girlfriend, you never lose her, you just lose your place in the queue sometimes. Meanwhile, on my last day in Thailand, she kindly bought me gifts and arranged to give me a send-off dinner the night before with her friends, then had herself and friends come to my hotel to say goodbye. All very sweet of her. She agreed to wait for me but had reservations with me keeping in contact with her, as previous Farang had promised to return but instead cut all communication with her once they returned to their home countries. She kept telling me not to tell her when I'm coming, but rather when I am back in Thailand. That is when I'm physically on the ground. I suspect this is because she is busy with meeting others and wants to be able to plan for concrete arrangements with me. Maybe a little too cynical, but it's hard not to be under these circumstances. I have read there's a 99% chance of a fail with choosing an ex-bar girl or freelancer as a permanent girlfriend. I am beginning to realise at first hand why this is the case. A certain amount of hardening of the lady is going to happen. I am sure the attitude changes as well. I am back in Australia now, in contact with her, but not every day, and it is never very romantic, just conversation. I have booked a flight and agreed to meet her when I come to Thailand in the next couple of months. I intend to maybe do some traveling with her in Thailand. I'm not naive, and I promised myself I won't leave my brains at the airport when I arrive in Bangkok. I accept the reality and don't want to tell myself that she is different and will one day change and that she really likes me and only me. I am currently noting that most of the time it is me who is reaching out to make contact with Pim, whereas other Thai girlfriends I had are reaching out to me. It's more often than not this way. Honestly, it doesn't bother me too much and it won't put me off Pim. Provided I can get my head around the reality of the situation we both are in, it doesn't really matter either way. So I will likely reach out to her on my return to Thailand in the not too distant future. I like Pim and her friends. I will most likely return to see Pim and these new friends. I'll be sure to pack my bag with Australian goodies and distribute them around to all these lovely ladies, making sure Pim receives a lot more presents than the others as she is my favourite. I realise this isn't a happy ending story, but one in real time that has an uncertain but likely outcome. It is, however, a brutally honest one about an attractive, lovely Thai girl that is caught up in a world of survival. On the other hand, I also believe she possesses all the cunning and the tricks that enable her to survive in this environment. I have some connection with her and I don't want to throw it all away simply because of what she currently does to ply her trade. Instead, I am purely enjoying the moments I have had with her. I still am open with meeting others when in Thailand, in brackets and Australia, in pursuing a romantic partnership. But in the meantime, this arrangement suits me and I don't expect her to change, especially for me. It is only fair for me to see others as she does indeed she sees many others. What is good for the goose is good for the gander, as they say. Do you think I'm being realistic? Is this a typical scenario? Am I mad? Alarm bells sounding everywhere. I would appreciate any constructive criticism and feedback would be appreciated. Well, it's very easy for me to answer this one because I've seen this play out time and time again. So let's look at it from both perspectives, the girls and for yours. So what you're basically saying in a nutshell, you're saying, okay, I know what she's about. I know she's got other guys. I know she's a freelancer. I know she sells herself, but I like her. I like her company, and I'm going to turn a blind eye to all that, because I'm not leaving my brains at the airport. I know what she does, and I accept it, and that's fine. Okay, so we'll analyze that in a minute. But let's go to the girl's side now. From her side, here's a guy who's in a relationship with her. Now, she knows most guys, when they catch her out, they either want to finish or they go crazy or it doesn't end well, okay? But here's a guy who's saying, right, okay, I know you're going to go with other guys. I know you get money for having aerobics with other guys and everything, and that's fine, but I'm just going to enjoy your company when I'm here. She's hit the jackpot. It's brilliant for her because she doesn't have to hide anything. She doesn't have to hide messages. She's on a phone and the guy says who's actually, she can say it's Jason from wherever. He's coming in 2 weeks' time. Okay, so that's her sorted out. She's very, very happy. Now let's look at it from the guy's point of view. So he's already said, right, I know what she does. No problem. I can accept it. It doesn't work like that, honestly, because what happens is, at the beginning, you might think like that. And I've seen it, like I say just now, I've seen it played out and it does happen every time. So at the beginning, you'll get here and you'll think, yeah, okay, I accept it. I know what she does, fine, no problem. I'm with her now, I'm enjoying the company. But then you go back home or you call her one night or you arrange to meet her for dinner and you say, look, I'll see you in Terminal 21 in the basement. We'll have a nice meal at 8 o'clock and then we'll go to the cinema. You get to Terminal 21 at 8 p.m. She doesn't turn up. It's 8:30. You've been texting her, you've been phoning her, you can't get hold of her. Gets to 10 o'clock at night, you still can't get hold of her. You know what she's doing. You know she's with another customer. You know she's in a hotel room. So what happens? You get thoroughly depressed. You go to a hotel, back to your hotel or into a bar and you sulk. And what happens? You start playing mind games with yourself and you remember how good she was at the aerobics in your hotel room and what she did for you and how she made you feel so good. And all of a sudden you're sitting alone in a bar thinking about this girl and what she is probably doing to this other strange guy who you don't know, but you know how good he's getting it because you've had it, if that makes sense, okay? And what tends to happen then, it tends to poison the mind because what happens, you become extremely, extremely jealous. And I've never met a guy who can accept this the way you've said it, when you meet the girl eventually, you attack her. You're basically like, I was waiting for you, you didn't turn up, and she's making her excuses, and then she'll turn around probably and say, well, you knew what I do. You said you accepted it, and here you are having a go at me. And it just, the conflict's there, and the next time it happens, it just escalates and to the point where you won't be able to stand it and it won't work. So my advice to you, honestly, as just an opinion, everybody's got an opinion, they like backsides, mine's nothing special, but my advice to you is, drop her, come back to Thailand and have fun with another Thai girl. Because they're all nice, aren't they? Why do you need to stick to the same one if you're not that bothered, okay? Right, let's go into the third story, the final story for today. And this is another one of those nice stories about a young guy. For the rest of his life, he's going to look back on his happy times in Thailand. But he does progress in age throughout the story. So let me just get straight into this one. I will start this story in 2002. I was 22 years old and I had just finished university in the UK. I was keen to do a gap year and travel around Australia. Fortunately, I have an exciting but slightly crazy uncle who lives or lived in an old log cabin near Denver in Colorado in the Rocky Mountains. So on my way to Australia, I visited him. The reason I mention this is the fact that many backpackers from the UK stop off in Southeast Asia on their way to Australia. However, I choose not to do this as I love to visit my uncle, and I honestly thought that this was a much better option for me at the time. When I arrived in Australia, I met up with some of my other friends from the UK and they told me about their time in Thailand. At this point, I hadn't really met any Thai people or even eaten Thai food, so I didn't have any aspirations to visit Thailand. I had heard, and they did tell me about the bar girl scene, and some of my friends, I think, had even stayed with a freelancer or two. This was all quite interesting, but I still had little interest of visiting as I was quite a young man. I was interested in chasing girls around the backpackers of Australia. At the end of that year, I headed back to the UK. I returned to Australia in 2006 for a second working holiday and again visited my uncle in Colorado. By this time, I was 26 years old. When I arrived in Australia, I settled in a town called Fremantle, which is south of Perth. There was a really cool backpackers hostel called the Old Fire Station that in fact used to be a fire station that was now turned into a backpackers hostel. I initially stayed there, bought a four-wheel drive and spent a few months driving around Australia. I then returned to Fremantle and I wanted to stay in the same backpackers hostel again. The problem was the backpackers hostel was fully booked, so I had to stay at another backpackers hostel that I really didn't like all that much. This backpackers hostel had a few weirdos, a few lost souls, a few Australians that were working that basically didn't have anywhere to live, and a few actual backpackers. It was a real odd bunch and it just wasn't as much fun as the old fire station. I continually went back week after week to see if there was room at the old fire station, but eventually I gave up. In hindsight, this was a good thing as I made many friends in the backpackers hostel that I was now in, including a group of Thai girls who were also backpacking around Australia. I became very good friends with these girls and they trusted me enough to share a room with them in the backpackers hostel, which meant that I paid very cheap rent. I will mention that one of the girls was named Pang. Pang told me all about Thailand and the beautiful girls there. She had a wonderful sense of humour and was very confident. I really liked the way she spoke very directly, particularly about aerobics, which was interesting. She had a really cool English boyfriend who used to hang around with us as well. She told me that as I was young, I would not need to pay for the aerobics when I came to Thailand, as there would be lots of girls that would want to be with me for free. When she said this, I found this slightly shocking and quite complimentary. However, I still did not have a huge desire to visit Thailand. After a few months, I decided to travel up to a town in the far northwest of Australia called Broome. As my brother was living there and he had an apartment that he was renting that I could live in when I got there. I drove my four-wheel drive up and took two of the Thai girls, including Pang, and another friend with me as they wanted to move up there as well, as they were getting a bit bored with Fremantle. We all found jobs and eventually the Thai girls left and did their own thing, and I found a full-time job and ended up settling in Broome. I lived in Broome for several years. After a few years, I actually lost contact with these Thai girls, which was a little bit sad as we were very close friends. Then suddenly, out of the blue, maybe after a couple of years, Pang emailed me to tell me that she had contracted a disease and due to complications was now permanently and completely blind. I know what you're thinking, this sounds like a scam. However, it was 100% true. Naturally, I was devastated for her. Some time passed and I decided to visit Thailand to visit Pang. I was also going to meet up with my parents there as they had never been to Thailand before. I also had an old school friend who lived in Koh Phangan who I was going to visit when I arrived in Bangkok. I had booked a hotel through a travel agent in Broome who had put me in a hotel called Bel Air Hotel on Sukhumvit Soi 5. When I arrived in Bangkok, I expected I would not like it. This was because many of my backpacker friends had been critical of Thailand. I put this down to certain travellers only going to the tourist areas. I also put it down to my friends arriving from the UK, the allure of the sun-drenched beaches of Koh Phangan when arriving from the backdrop of the grey English towns and cities of our home. Many travellers from the UK don't give Bangkok much of a chance. However, I've always had a liking for the busy cities, particularly when they have a bit of grit and character about them. I was immediately fascinated by Sukhumvit Road, the combination of the small stores, tailors shops, bars, modern shopping centres and of course the occasional lady boy all combining into this vibrant epicentre was a fascinating eye-opener. The other thing to mention is if you are feeling a bit overwhelmed, there are many picturesque and quiet sois around Sukhumvit where you can find a charming little cafe or restaurant, etc. After arriving at the hotel, I was slightly surprised when the receptionist told me that if I wanted to bring a friend back to the hotel, I would have to pay an extra 1,000 baht. I didn't really understand what this meant. Did this mean if I went drinking with my male friends and one of my friends was to come back because he couldn't find his hotel and he wanted to crash in my room, I'd have to pay 1,000 baht? Or was it if I was to bring a girl back? It struck me as an odd thing to say. This was obviously me being very naive. I met Pang, which was strange after all these years, especially as now I had to help her everywhere. I also met up with a couple of my other Thai friends from Australia, one of whom had got an American boyfriend who I got along with really well. So there was a big gang of us. The first night we ended up going to Khao Sun Road. We ended up in a bar called Gulliver's. I really liked this bar. It had a good vibe and was a good size with a circular bar in the centre. It had a small dance floor at the back, but it had the type of vibe that you could just dance anywhere. It was also full of young people, Farang and Thai alike, including a few young Thai girls who were sitting alone or in groups of two. As the night ended, my other friends had to leave as they were both working the next day and I was left in Gulliver's with just Pang. Pang then told me that I should go and find some girls. I found this a bit strange as, like many guys, I've never been particularly good at talking to random girls in nightclubs or bars, and I personally find it a bit daunting, but Pang had put me right on the spot. I think she was almost daring me, so I thought I'll give it a go. I thought what would honestly happen is I would walk around the bar and then just walk straight back to where I was sitting and say, oh, I couldn't find anyone, or make up some excuse to tell her. So I started my lap of the bar. As I was walking around, a woman who looks maybe 10 or 15 years older than me caught my attention and beckoned me over to talk to her. For the sake of the story, we'll call her Knock. To my surprise, the first thing she said to me was, I'm too old for you. I have a friend who is a lot younger. Wait there and I'll go and get her. I was very confused about what was perhaps going on. This all seemed a bit strange. I didn't know this woman. Was she drunk? In any case, within a few minutes, out of the side door walked this incredibly beautiful younger Thai girl. She was honestly a 10 out of 10 and very slender. For the sake of this story, we'll call her Tuk. I remember the first thing she did when she saw me jokingly stick her tongue out at me to get my attention and walk close towards me. She then proceeded to go straight to the bathroom, of which she came out a few minutes later, obviously having put on a full face of makeup. Not that she honestly needed to. I remember thinking, if I was to take this girl home, it would honestly be the most beautiful girl I would ever have taken home in my life. The night was good. I stayed and had a few drinks with Knock and Tuk. I felt incredibly guilty as I had left Pang sitting all alone on the other side of the bar whilst I was chatting up these girls. I went over to check on Pang and she told me to go back and enjoy myself. I think my old friend Pang was glad that the promise she made me when we had met a few years back in Fremantle about being able to pick up Thai girls had finally happened. We joked around and I ended up getting a taxi with Pang and Tuk back to our hotel. Tuk stayed over at my hotel. We had a great session of aerobics. The following morning we walked out together and Tuk got a taxi home. After I got back to my hotel, I was still feeling a bit worse for wear after all the beer and I got back into bed. After about an hour, the phone rang in my hotel room. It was a bit of a shock because I didn't know anybody would ring me. I answered it only to hear a hysterical Thai girl on the other end frankly calling out my name and telling me, "This is Tuk, I'm downstairs, I need money now, money now." I was suddenly very panicked and then all of a sudden I heard this girl start to laugh and say, "Only joking, this is Pang." This was Pang pretending to be Tuk. Of course, this was only Pang messing around, which I found quite funny. The following night, I met up with Nock and Tuk back at Gulliver's. When I got there, Nock was there, but Tuk wasn't. Then Nock told me that Tuk was busy with another customer and she would be along later. It then dawned on me that these girls were in fact freelancers. They caused a slight panic in me as well as a bit of jealousy. I was thinking right now she could be doing aerobics with a completely different guy. My other concern was that I had not given Tuk any money and she hadn't asked for any money from the night she had spent with me. What did this mean? Did this mean that she was going to send me a bill at the end of the week? Or did it mean that a bunch of heavy bouncer type blokes were going to come to my hotel at some point and demand money? However, I needn't have been worried as I realised what Pang had told me about not having to pay was true. But if you are young, not bad looking, in certain situations you will meet freelancers and will not have to pay. I'm not 100% sure why this is, but I put this situation down to the fact that Tuk saw me as a potential boyfriend and didn't want to classify me into the customer type of bracket. As I waited for Tuk, another unexpected event took place. I couldn't help but notice a gorgeous Thai girl on her own at the end of the bar, and yes, she was also a 10/10. She was slightly curvier than Tuk and just so beautiful with this amazing free-flowing black hair. Of course we locked eyes and she makes a beeline for me, flicking her hair, standing right next to me and doing everything possible to get my attention. Naturally, I just had to stand there and ignore her as I was waiting for Tuk. What a waste, I was thinking. But I do remember thinking about how fantastic at the same time how ridiculous this situation was and how I was definitely coming back to this place in the future. I also remembered how laborious it was trying to pick up girls in the UK and Australia compared to this. It was almost like I was one of those smoking hot girls in a nightclub in the UK and having guys pandering all over me, except here the roles were reversed. Tuk eventually turned up and the other girl disappeared down the other end of the bar. I was in Gulliver's with Tuk for a couple of hours. I noticed a group of 4 or 5 young European male backpackers came in. They had a certain "I just arrived in Thailand" type look about them. The hot girl I mentioned earlier turned her attention to these guys, flicking her hair, dancing and doing everything to get their attention. However, these guys were also completely ignoring her. I felt so sorry for this girl. Perhaps they didn't have a lot of money. I don't know what the young guys were thinking. Maybe they were thinking this was too good to be true and must be a scam or something. I'm sure they were as confused as I was when I arrived and hadn't figured out that in fact they had just arrived in a parallel universe. On a side note, I visited Khao Sun Road about 5 years ago after this incident, hoping to repeat the same success. My favourite bar, Gulliver's, had now closed. I tried a few other bars, but none of them seemed to have the same vibe as Gulliver's. So I went home depressed and empty-handed. The other thing I noticed is that I didn't see single or small groups of girls hanging around the bars like I did before. I don't know whether this is because all the freelancers no longer go to Khao Sun Road, or that with the increase in the internet dating, all these pretty girls find their dates online, or maybe they all work in high-end soapy massage parlours catering to wealthy Asians. Tuk became my holiday girlfriend for the rest of the spare time I had while I was there. Another thing I found slightly strange was the fact that Tuk kept telling me that she liked my blonde hair, blue eyes and white skin. I initially thought this was strange and sounded like some sort of right-wing ideology and slightly racist. However, It quickly dawned on me that in fact not only was she exotic to me, but I was also exotic to her, and it was the first time in my life that my natural features had given me such an unexpected advantage. I met up with my friends and parents in Koh Phangan and then bounced back to Bangkok and spent a bit of time with Tuk before leaving. My overall holiday was fantastic, and of course, like many other people, I fell in love with Thailand, the food, the friendliness of the locals, and of course the girls. From this moment on, Thailand became my #1 holiday destination. As I have friends already in Thailand, every time I go I would meet them and they would introduce me to some of their friends who therefore became my friends. What this basically means is I've been to Thailand over 10 times, and every time I go, I always have a large group of people to meet up with. Very often it's a case of as soon as I arrive back home, I think about booking my next trip out there. I very often think back to when I was in Australia and I was desperate to try and get into the old fire station, backpackers hostel. If this had happened, I would never have met with Pang and the other Thai girls. I'm sure I would have eventually ended up going to Thailand, but if I hadn't met up with Pang, I would have never gone to Khao San Road that night and met Nok and Tuk, or a whole bunch of other friends that have turned into lifelong friends. I'm still in contact with all of these girls. Pang now lives in the north of Thailand and has a very nice boyfriend who lives in Europe. Tuk ended up marrying a Canadian man, moving to Canada and having a baby with him. They split up about a year ago. I talked to her on the phone about 6 months ago, and she told me she's now a freelancer in Canada. I think the phrase, you can take the girl out of the bar, but you can't take the bar out of the girl, is very much true in this case. Tuk continually asked me to pay for her aerobic sessions at some point in the future. However, that hasn't transpired yet. It's been over 10 years, so it may be worth doing for old time's sake. Nok is still living in Bangkok. However, I do not think she still works as a freelancer, and she's now working in construction. I meet up with her every time I go back to Bangkok, and I enjoy drinking beers in one of the Hillary bars. Even though I have been to Thailand many times, I have never really been into freelancers, and I haven't been to a single go-go bar. This was mainly because I have either been in a relationship or just dated Thai girls when I came to Thailand. Or, as I mentioned before, I used to find it quite easy just picking up girls in bars. On a side note, I met some fantastic Thai girls through dating apps over the years. However, it's quite tiresome going out with these girls, as these girls often work long hours in offices and are often tired when you meet them. It's also quite hard to build up momentum spending time getting to know these girls if you're only going to be in Thailand for a few weeks. I think if you are going to put the effort into dating these girls, I would recommend coming for a minimum of 1 month or 2. I am recently single, and I am now planning my trip back in April, and I will, for the first time, experience these delights of go-go bars and massage parlours, as this is an itch I've been meaning to scratch for a while. Isn't that another good story? Okay, so I'm in a really lucky position actually, because you guys hear this story and you have to conjure this all up in your mind, but a lot of the times when guys send in stories to me, they send in photographs with the story, just to kind of give it some reality, I suppose, you know. And the guy who told this story, he sent me a picture of Pang and Nok and all the girls he was involved in, and they were very, very beautiful. Unfortunately, I can't show them to you for obvious reason. Everybody says, look, these are for you to see, but don't show them on your channel. So that's an advantage I have. It's very nice looking at these photographs. I've deleted them now if the author of this story's watching, just in case he regrets sending them. So I think I'm going to end it there. I haven't got a lot more to say. This is probably one of the longest story sessions, Saturday morning story sessions, because I've had quite a bit to say in between the stories. Okay, so I'll end it there. All that's left to say is thanks for watching again, and I'll be back next Saturday with some more stories.